Yes, I got my hair done. Big slay, I know. Hello and welcome back to the Miscellaneous channel where we do miscellaneous things. I'm Susannah. I typically cover TV, pop culture, internet trends, and other miscellaneous things on this channel, so subscribe if that's your vibe. The world is in a dark place. It is rainy outside. My rights are being taken away every single day, it seems like. So this past weekend I decided to just hole up in my house and binge watch this teen summer romance fantasy show on Amazon Prime, The Summer I Turned Pretty, brought to you by the same author that brought you To All the Boys I Loved Before. This show is adapted from a book series, just like those Netflix movies were. And although I felt kind of too old to be watching this show, it did win me over towards the end. Let me start with my usual question, and that is The Summer I Turned Pretty worth watching? I say it's alright. I think it's more whether you like this genre or not. If you like the teen romance, more on the serious drama side rather than like quirky and fun. Like if you back in the day liked Nicholas Sparks and Twilight, then The Summer I Turned Pretty might be worth a shot. But if you've outgrown that genre already, then you might feel kind of old watching this show. I think if you're a teen, I don't know what teens like nowadays, so maybe you would like it. I can't speak for teens. There were a lot of times watching the show where I just felt like too old to care about what was going on. But it is a well-made show. It has really pretty cinematography, like technically it's great. Has a lot of teen relationship drama, some family drama, rich people, which is a crucial element to any teen show, I guess. This is the type of show that feels like the type of romance book you would read while sitting on your beach vacation. It's not as like succinct and cute and fun and wholesome and comedic as To All the Boys I've Loved Before, so you might like it if you like the To All the Boys series. But if you feel like meh about those movies or didn't care for them that much, then definitely I wouldn't recommend this show. It's even more serious in tone, more heavy on the romance side. Let me tell you a little bit about The Summer I Turned Pretty. Like I mentioned, it is a series on Amazon Prime, and all of season 1 is available to watch. It is 7 episodes. Each episode ranges from about 44 minutes to 52 minutes, and it was based on a book trilogy by Jenny Han. The books were first released in 2009, so it was kind of a while ago, and the show did a good job of adapting to modern times. There's a lot of progressive elements to it that I don't imagine were in the books. Relevant topics discussed, current music included, so it did a good job at modernizing itself, especially since it's been over a decade. Jenny Han, the author, is actually the showrunner of the TV show, so she had a direct hand in adapting the book to modern times. The TV show was renewed for a season 2 before it even premiered, so a season 2 is guaranteed for this, and I imagine when they got the rights to the books to adapt them, they are thinking of making it 3 seasons to correlate with the 3 books in the series. The cast contained mostly newcomers that I wasn't very familiar with. There were kind of no big names in the cast to like draw people in with a fan base or anything. A lot of times with new shows, you'll see like at least one character cast, like Olivia Rodrigo or some other famous teen to draw viewers in, even if it's a smaller part in the show. But this show didn't have any of that. I think they're banking on the name recognition of the author and her success with To All the Boys. I thought about reading the book before making this video to like compare and contrast, but I decided I already spent, 7 hours of my life binging it in the past 24 hours, that I'm okay not reading the books. And I know I'll also be tempted to read like book 2 and book 3 if I like book 1, and I don't want to spoil future seasons of the show either. If you've read the book, no spoilers. I don't read books. I should also mention that. Like, I occasionally will be reading a nonfiction book, but it takes me like an entire year to read the nonfiction book. I did, however, look up the first like 3 chapters of The Summer I Turned Pretty book 1 because episode 1 of the show doesn't give like a ton of backstory or like explanation about the characters, which I kind of appreciated because lately in TV shows, I've been starting a lot of TV shows because I ran out of things to watch, and you know, when you're in between TV shows and you're trying out a bunch of different ones to see if one hooks you. I've been watching so many episode 1s of TV shows and noticing a lot of clunky exposition, which is like such a pet peeve of mine. Not that big of a pet peeve. I know exposition has to be done in these TV shows, but like the way it's sometimes so obvious, it's just like first 2 minutes of the movie, a character will pick up the phone and be like, well, if it isn't my twin brother Mark, who is a doctor and was divorced last May. And it's just like, I hate just getting all of the facts about a person just immediately like that. Maybe it's just me and other people like to just know things off the bat. I appreciate a piece of media that can gracefully give us exposition slowly and at opportune times that don't make it so blatant and obvious. So this show actually did a good job about having graceful exposition like that, but because of that, I didn't know like what ages the brothers were or who everyone was, and sometimes someone had like a name and then a nickname, and it took me a while to figure out what someone's name was. It was a white lady mom that I couldn't figure out her name. Anyway, I went back to the first chapters of the book to see if it provided a little more context, and it did. I would have ate this up as a teen. As an adult, the book felt kind of juvenile, but it makes sense. I don't really plan to keep reading the books for the reasons I already mentioned, but I did look on Reddit to see if there had been any discussions about the differences between the TV show and the books, because that's something I'm always curious about when there's a book adaptation of something. People liked the TV show in general a lot more than the books. They said that the main character in the books is very insufferable, down to some people putting down book 2 because the main character was just so annoying, and that they had never read a book with a main character as annoying as Belly in this. And in the TV show, the main character comes off pretty charming. She makes a lot of mistakes. She's a pretty flawed protagonist, but at the same time, she is charming. She definitely doesn't come off as super annoying or evil or bitter, which they say in the books. The main character comes off pretty selfish and bitter a lot of the time. A lot of the time she's moody and angry at all the boys. So I found that really interesting that they are praising the TV show so much more than the books. Usually the books are better, but I think that goes to show how TV shows do a better job of adapting books than movies do. Usually it's movies that we're saying the book is so much better, the movie leaves out so much, because movies have such limited time. But TV shows, I think now with the TV revolution and how TV became all cinematic, the lines are so much more blurred, and it's opened up the floodgates for adapting book series into TV shows a lot more. I know there's a Lord of the Rings ones coming with Amazon. The Harry Potter fandom has also been calling for a TV show adaptation of the books. I watched an interview with Jenny Han where she talked about this and how she wanted to be the showrunner because the books just translate so much easier to the TV medium. And I think that in itself, that Jenny Han is the showrunner of the show, is another reason it succeeds and improves upon the book, because she knows the material, and especially with a 10-year gap between the release of the book and now, she can improve upon it a lot. And I bet she looks at her work from 10 years ago and it's like, oh, I can tweak this, tweak that, and make it better. There were a couple of comments on Reddit that mentioned they liked the book better, but those were very few, and they were definitely the minority popular opinion. So first I want to talk about some technical things about the show in general. I think the show has a pretty serious vibe. It does have like, you know, comedy and lightheartedness to it, but it's definitely taking itself seriously, especially compared to All the Boys, where that series is so colorful, vibrant, and the protagonist is really funny and quirky, and there's just a lot of like cuteness to all the boys. Particularly the saturation of the colors stuck out to me a lot because it is very gray. Especially for a summer show, I expected a lot more colorfulness, and also coming from this author that did To All the Boys, I expected colorfulness, and I got gray. So it's very gray cast, that kind of New England beach vibe, not like Miami Beach, not California Beach, like Hannah Montana. I think personally I don't love that as much, but I do think it's a cue for the audience that like elevates your TV show or movie. I feel like it's a way to say I mean business with this TV show. In this section, I also wanted to talk about the music on this show because Daddy Bezos paid for so many top 40 hits on this TV show. Multiple Kim Petras songs, Can't Do Better in Malibu, which those you would expect not to be too expensive. But then you had songs like Up by Cardi B, Best Friend, several Billie Eilish songs like the When We Fall Asleep, Where Did We Go, and multiple Olivia Rodrigo songs like back to back. We had Brutal and One Step Forward, Three Steps Back, which I watched Driving Home to You, which was the Olivia Rodrigo little concert documentary thing she did, and she was like, I was so inspired when I heard someone say the saying, one step forward, two steps back. And I was just like, oh, to be 16 and never have heard that phrase before, like, sounds so blissful. Anyway, so that song played. We had Levitating by Dua Lipa. We had Is It True by Tame Impala. Taylor Swift, a song about like 20 seconds or 20 years. Swifties can tell me what that was. We had that Chloe Bailey song that's like, dun 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 like I do, dun 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 like I do. So I was bopping to the music on this show. They did not spare a dime. Let me start with the general premise of the show actually, and then go into the characters and their general arcs. So the main premise of the show is that Belly and her family go every single summer to a little beach town called Cousins. Belly has a brother named Steven and a mom named Laurel, who is recently divorced. In Cousins, they stay with their mom's best friend named Susannah and her two sons named Jeremiah and Conrad. Conrad is the older one. He's like 17 or 18. Jeremiah is unclear, Steven's unclear, and Belly is 15, about to turn 16. Belly has a huge crush on Conrad. She's had a crush on him since she was 10. This summer, she hopes to get a kiss from him. That's kind of her main goal that she talks over with her best friend Taylor back home. What's different this summer, if you can't tell from the title, honestly the title is the whole fucking premise of the show. Belly has had a big glow up from last summer to this one, so she's hot now. Her best friend Taylor and her are hoping that because she's hot now, Conrad will notice. Taylor is trying to be more encouraging, and Belly is still unsure and doesn't like fully believe she's glowed up as much as everyone says. Glue up? Glowed up? Whatever. I did learn from the Reddit that Taylor, the best friend character back home, is a lot meaner in the books. So I'm glad they tweaked that for the TV show a bit, even though she is still a bit bitchy. So we start off the show with Belly and her family making their way to Cousins and reuniting with Susannah's family and the boys for the first time. And then the series takes place following that summer, following Belly through a love triangle she ends up in between both brothers and also some other random guy towards the beginning. Plus there's a side storyline with Belly's brother Steven dating a girl named Shayla who he feels is kind of out of his league because she's super rich, and Belly and their family is not super well off, it seems like, compared to a lot of the rich people in this beach town. Laurel and Susannah, who are the moms, also have interesting subplots of their own going on throughout the season, and the big conflict and where the stakes are raised is that Susannah reveals at the end of episode 3 that she has cancer and she hasn't told her sons or anybody except for her best friend Laurel, the other mom. Susannah has also opted not to go through another treatment for the cancer and has accepted this is going to be her last summer there. She doesn't want to tell everybody because she doesn't want them to like make it sad and make it a big deal and have that burden on them, and prefers to just have like one last perfect summer with everyone. So let's talk about Belly's journey throughout this season. So Belly as a protagonist, I found, the whole premise of the show is very unrelatable to me. Like randomly being hot one summer and having a bunch of guys thirsting after you. Can't relate. That's why as far as teen shows go, my favorite modern one is Never Have I Ever on Netflix. And that's because the protagonist, Debbie, is so relatable and like reminds me so much of myself. She's just a messy nerd, which is what I was at the time. And I find her a lot more relatable, despite that show also feeling like very juvenile. And when I watch, sometimes I feel too old for it, but at the same time, I just really appreciate it and can put myself in her shoes. On The Summer I Turned Pretty, not so much. Can't put myself in her shoes. Like, I understand the title of the show is about kind of when you pass that awkward stage of being like a tween between ages like 10 and 14, where you're growing into your puberty as a woman, very generally speaking. But at the same time, you know, Belly is very beautiful. She's also like a jock. She's captain of the volleyball team. She doesn't have like a lot of like quirky personality traits that I typically expect from this type of TV show and story. I was on board with Belly for a lot of the show. She at first is trying to get herself out more. She attends the bonfire on the first night, which is something that the other boys didn't want her to attend. She gets wrapped up in a fight of some sort. She gets elbowed in the face on accident. She also sees her crush Conrad like making out with some other girl, which is obviously very disappointing. But it's at the bonfire where she meets the first love interest, which is Cam. Cam is someone she had met at some old school thing, and just that one time they had a lot in common. They had good chemistry, and they end up kissing that night. Which I found this really weird because all the boys, I'm going to just call the boys like Belly's family boys, so Jeremiah, Conrad, and Steven. The boys were all trying to take Belly home from the bonfire, and she was outside their truck making out with Cam, who she just kind of met. And the boys didn't say anything or they didn't look. It was kind of confusing. And then later when she was like, oh, I'm going to go on a date with Cam, they were like, who's Cam? It's like the guy she was making out with, like that you witnessed. I don't know. And then it got really crazy around episode 6 where suddenly Jeremiah was interested in Belly, which felt so random because they had introduced him as a character as like very flirty. Just that vibe of someone that's like flirty, but it's like he's just your friend. Like it didn't seem like he had a crush at all. Also, he was kind of a slut, always looking at other people, kind of having fun, like dating around. So eventually Jeremiah's into Belly and Belly reciprocates kind of, even though she's obsessed with Conrad too. And then at the end, of course, we all obviously knew Conrad was the end game, but Belly was almost kissing Conrad and then ultimately kissing him, even though it was super unresolved with Jeremiah. So there was one point where Nicole called Belly a fuck girl, and I was so proud of that moment because I was like, yes, call her out, because she's kind of, as she put it, she's playing with a lot of hearts, and Belly is, and I think the point is that like she's not used to this attention, so she's just like eating it all up, which you go girl, slay. But also these are your lifelong family friendships. She was just a little bit of a little hoe, and I say that endearingly. She did get on my nerves just for just kissing whoever was in front of her. That's what it felt like. It felt like she liked and kissed whoever was in front of her, which is actually kind of realistic for a teenager. So I appreciate like the risk and daringness to have like a flawed protagonist like this that isn't being like perfectly loyal and true to the end game guy who is toxic to her all the time. It was a little hard to root for her fully because it was like, girl, what are you doing? Who are you interested in? Because suddenly she was like she was into Jeremiah and kept making out with him. There was no hint before that she would like him at all. Cam was let go around, episode 3 or 4 or whatever, but This girl isn't a love triangle, and it wouldn't be a teen show without a love triangle. This show borderline felt like fanfic though, like the trope of like the girl who grew up with a bunch of guys and then suddenly when she comes of age they're interested in her. Like, it's very Kissing Booth, which is the trashy version of To All the Boys on Netflix. It's very similar to Kissing Booth in that kind of setup, especially the Kissing Booth 2 because they're like at a beach house in that one. Or maybe it's the third one actually. I guess it's not a fan fiction because it's not like about a famous person, but you know the vibe. Like, just replace the brothers with the Jonas Brothers and you have a fanfic right there. This trope is so classic though that like I grew up always wishing my mom had like a best friend with hot boys as their sons, because like I would see these things in media where it's like the guy I grew up with, oh my god, he's into me now, he's hot now and I'm hot now. I grew up wishing that was my life, and my mom never in her life had a friend with a hot guy as a son. This actually did kind of happen to me once where like I had a friend who my mom was really close to his mom in middle school. This is really not a flex, it was like 6th grade. And he would come to my house, he would call me all the time, and I was not into him. I had my crush, you know, wherever else. And then later on in life, he did become kind of hot. And I was like, God damn it. Because he was also rich and he gave me a Coach purse for my birthday. My loss, I guess. He could have bought me a Birkin by now, but whatever. But ultimately, I liked Belly. I think the actress Lola Tung did a really good job playing her in a charming way that wasn't annoying, especially after seeing people's accounts on Reddit saying she is so annoying in the books. It made me appreciate the TV show Belly a lot more. Something else about the show is that the parenting is so lax. Like, all of these kids are drinking at all times, they're partying every day. Belly does have her first time getting wasted with a bunch of margaritas, and that causes a lot of trouble for that day. She spills secrets to people. I think this was a real low point in the season. She made Susannah trip with the cake and break the cake stand, and it was this important moment she ruined. She told Steven's girlfriend, Shayla, that Steven had kissed another girl, so like, Belly was just a mess, and I don't know why these adults let their kids drink so much. And they did get mad at Belly for drinking, but they don't get mad at all the boys for drinking constantly. So I don't really know what the rules are here. There's also a lot of pot smoking in the show. The moms are the ones mostly smoking pot, but the kids too sometimes. It's so funny because every time an episode would end, it would show executive produced by Speedweed. So makes sense, there's a lot of pot on the show. So let me talk a little bit about some of the other characters, not going too into depth on them. So let's start with Conrad, who is Belly's main love interest. Conrad was so fucking annoying this season. I hated him. He was so toxic. He just felt like the type of guy that doesn't give you the time of day until you ignore him and treat him bad, and then he gives you like a crumb of niceness, and then that melts your heart, and then he goes back to being an asshole. That's how he was the whole friggin' time. I see a lot of people on Reddit and stuff be team Conrad, so I imagine like maybe he redeems himself later in the books, but he was just such a douche. The whole season he was dating Nicole, but like totally leading her on because he kind of had his eye on Belly. Like, they kept flirting and they almost kissed, and he was still dating Nicole. Like, the amount of like kissing and cheating that happened on the show, it was literally like Euphoria light. Conrad just felt like he was an ass to Nicole, and then he was also an ass to Belly, like treating her like shit all the time, and then occasionally being randomly nice and saying like one nice thing, and then she would be like, oh yay, oh Conrad, love me. It is revealed at the end of the season that he was being moody the whole damn time because he actually knew that his mom, Susannah, had cancer and wasn't planning on treating it, or was terminal basically. I thought at first, before that was revealed, that maybe he had like a friend at his rich boarding school die or something. Like, I just figured there was some reason, but once it was revealed that the mom had cancer, it made a lot more sense. He's really struggling with that burden. I mean, he's carrying it kind of on his own. No one else knows. There's a moment where he has a panic attack, and he's been working with this guy author in the town who ends up being the love interest for Laurel. who's also an author. Laurel is Belly's mom. This guy, Cleveland, is doing research on sailing, and Conrad is like a prodigy at sailing because he's a rich kid from the beach. Cleveland becomes this kind of mentor figure to Conrad, and these were the moments that were most interesting with Conrad because it showed like his vulnerable side. Cleveland had a way of like making him open up a lot more because he didn't treat him like a kid or didn't like discipline him the way a parent does. All in all, I hated Conrad. I'm sorry, the team Conrad shippers. He's just an ass. And I love that Bestie Taylor was on my side and she was Team Jelly. So I'll get to that in a sec. Let's talk about Jeremiah next, who is the younger brother of Conrad. And towards the second half of the season, we learn that he has feelings for Belly, which wasn't clear in the first few episodes because he was introduced as a flirt to us as a character and just like a super touchy-feely friendly guy. I think it was just a flaw in how he was introduced because if we don't know how he was before, we don't know if he's acting different this summer to Belly or not. Also in the book, in the first chapter, it alluded to something that had gone on between Jeremiah and Belly before. So maybe the book is more clear about teasing the Jeremiah twist, but the TV show, it kind of came out of nowhere for me. It was when he like threw a firework at Conrad and Belly about to kiss that he was like pissed, and it was just like so random to me. So Jeremiah is the younger brother and he has like a golden retriever vibe. They keep throwing around the term golden retriever to describe him. He does remind me of like every popular guy from my high school, life of the party type of guy, very positive, enthusiastic. He's also bisexual in this. I don't know if he was like that in the books. It kind of felt like maybe an added progressive trait to give him for today's times. But it was cool to see the representation, and you see him be unashamedly bi throughout this season. I was really liking Jeremiah for like in the entire time before the twist where he started liking Belly. He just felt like a good anchor and friend for Belly. Like he was the one of the boys that like tried to include her, or at least tried to be nice to Belly in general, and I admired that about him. It felt weird when it later we find out that it's because he was interested that he was being nice, I guess. I mean, I think he's nice regardless, but it made me rethink his niceness this whole time as just like, oh, he's just trying to get with her a little bit. I do think he's a better fit with Belly, and I like them together because they just seem a lot less toxic. I think Belly's side is way more weird and convoluted than Jeremiah's side. He seems earnestly to be into her and in love with her, and it's kind of ironic because the way Jeremiah sees Belly is kind of how Belly sees Conrad. So it's all this unrequited love triangle as usual. Jeremiah is Jacob, Belly is Bella, and Conrad is Edward. Honestly, the names all kind of match up in a weird way. But I was surprised Belly reciprocated so much. She ended up asking him to the debutante ball, made out with him a few times, and it felt like they were starting some sort of relationship. I did see some spoilers a little bit for the books that I hope aren't true, but might be true, and oh my god. I am Team Jelly, that's their name, and Bestie Taylor is on my side, and she made a whole Finsta for Team Jelly. They had to add Finstas to the script to make it modern. Who makes like a friendship page on Instagram? I don't know if that's realistic, but whatever. I was all for Bestie Taylor looking out for Team Jelly. I'm Team Jelly. I'll say it, sure. Only because Conrad's a toxic asshole. It's like by process of elimination, not because I'm enthusiastically Team Jelly. I did think it was so sad at the end where he found out his mom had cancer in the finale. He's supposed to be Belly's date and escort for the big debutante ball we've been leading up to this whole time. He finds out about his mom's cancer and runs outside to cry and break down about it. It's right before the final dance, so he's nowhere to be found, and Belly's looking around for her dance partner, and of course Conrad swoops in and does the dance. And it just felt so shitty for Jeremiah. You're over there crying about your mom having cancer and your brother swooping in to steal your girl. Like, excuse me? That's so fucked up for Jeremiah. So justice for Jeremiah this season. Poor guy, been through a lot. It's not looking hopeful, but obviously Belly and Conrad are endgame. Like, obviously. He also did not get resolved at the end. Belly just makes out with Conrad privately on a beach, and fuck Jeremiah's drag. We don't know where he is. We don't get a resolution to Belly and Jeremiah at all. Next in the main characters, we have Steven, who is Belly's brother and close with the other boys too. He has a subplot with a girl named Shayla that's also in the debutante circles, which Belly at first is struggling to decide to do the debutante thing, but then she does, and she mostly enjoys the experience. Steven is trying to date this Shayla girl that is a rich debutante girl, and she is totally out of his league in general, or he feels like she's out of his league because she's dropping tons of money on dresses and asking him to buy a nice tux and things like that. So rich people pressures, rich people problems. Steven has kind of his own journey working at the cafe, like being working class, while other kids in the area aren't. Gets assigned to like a private poker room with all these old white guys that are, you know, super racist in general, and he has to just stay quiet and take it, but he gets good tips. So it's like, it was an interesting nuanced situation where he had to tolerate these awful racist remarks just being in the room, but making bank from their tips. So it's a very unique problem, and it's interesting they addressed it here. Eventually, Steven loses all his money to like the sons of the poker guys, because the sons are also into poker, more in a hobby sense, and they invite Steven, and he, I guess, forgets they're betting real money or doesn't know poker as well as he thought and loses all his money. He has to confess that to Shayla, and she's really upset but ultimately accepts him, and ultimately he stands up to those guys. Steven also had this hiccup and road bump early in the season where he made out with Taylor, Bestie Taylor, at the party. He was already dating almost Shayla, not exclusively, but you know, they had had sex. We saw that part. But Shayla did forgive him for that, and it was confusing because Taylor was like, you know, I've always been in love with Steven, to Belly, and I did not get that at all. Like, we never got any hint of that Taylor liked Steven. I thought Taylor liked Belly because they had this weird sexual tension in like the opening scene, and then when Taylor came into town to visit, she was like super jealous that Belly had other friends, and like to me it felt a little bit like love and sexual tension that Taylor was directing at Belly, not at Steven. But it doesn't seem like Taylor's into Belly. And in general, I think this show has a lot of themes of intimate friendships, and there were a lot of friendship moments where I felt like a sexual tension or like a romantic thing with them. I think it's meant to show like super intimate friendships in that way, because none of those things played out into romantic moments. It just kind of felt like a vibe, and then I was like, I guess not. So finally, I want to talk about the moms, and these are our final main characters. I've talked about some of the side characters already. I don't think I need to go more into them. The moms were very interesting characters, Laurel and Susannah. They had the most queer vibes. Like, I saw a Reddit comment that was like, anyone else think the moms were a bit fruity? Yes, there's a lot of comments on the subreddit talking about how the moms gave kind of lesbian vibes, or just that there was some deep romantic relationship there that maybe it's unsaid, I don't know. But I think the mom storylines were very good to include. Something that critics kind of have been praising is the inclusion of the mom so much and their storylines. I don't think their storylines were this developed in the books, and also Steven's storyline wasn't in the book, I believe. So including a lot of the mom stories and making them a lot more like real people rather than just mom characters, which in teen shows, like, the mom characters are sexless advice people to the main characters that are just background. So I do commend the show a lot on showing Laurel and Susannah as very fleshed out and interesting mom characters. You see them when the kids aren't around and they feel like relatable. I think I'm closer in age to the moms than the teens, which is so embarrassing to admit. The mom was like, oh, you know, I was inspired by the Olsen twins. And Belly's like, who are the Olsen twins? I was like, Laurel's just like, they're sisters with the Scarlet Witch. People know Elizabeth Olsen now, which is wild. They are smoking pot a lot because Susannah is actually dealing with the pain of cancer, which we don't learn till the end of episode 3. Susannah is interesting because she is definitely avoiding this big confrontation and secret. She has to tell her sons. I found the ending kind of weird for her because finally both her sons find out about the cancer and confront her about it. She had already made this decision to not do chemo again because it was too hard and the chance of survival was so slim, which is an interesting and heavy subject matter for a type of show like this. Like, this was definitely a heart-wrenching storyline, and I was crying in the final episode. The boys at the end are trying to convince her to do the trial regardless, like do chemo. Then they do. And she's like, okay, I'll do the trial. It just felt like, wait, what? Like, this whole season you've been like so sure. As a mom, you know, if you tell your kids, they're gonna say try to survive. Like, did she not expect her sons to ask for this? I mean, it makes sense, like, that she would try for them. It just felt like weird that she went to the other extreme so quickly, especially because she did plan to tell her sons just after the summer, not during. It's interesting because Susannah and Laurel through the summer like co-parent each other's kids a lot, and that's I think where a lot of the queer vibes between them come. So it really feels like a two-mom family where you go to a different mom for different things, you know, just like any two parents. Susannah is more of like a sensitive and gives good advice and emotional type of person, while Laurel is a lot more of like a logic and reasoning person. It did feel like Susannah was trying to like take over Laurel's role as Belly's mom, because Susannah was really pressuring Belly to do debutantes and all that, and Laurel kind of looks down upon the debutante stuff. So at first I thought Susannah had like some shady intentions with like trying to steal Belly's attention from Laurel, but there was never any like jealousy that actually played out between Laurel and Susannah. Their problems came from like Susannah keeping the secrets from her and stuff, and more just like friendship, personal reasons rather than like stuff related to the kids. I thought at some point down the line Laurel was going to confront her like, stop trying to steal my daughter. But no, like, this whole family was very much about co-parenting, and these two moms were co-parenting. And then we had Laurel, who is an author. I was kind of confused why their family wasn't rich, because it did seem like she was a successful author. At the beginning, she's not on social media and doesn't have any followers, so maybe she's not as huge of an author and therefore not so rich. Anyway, Laurel has a summer fling with Cleveland, who was the mentor of Conrad, the other author. They have sex, which I was like, okay, good on you, show, for showing mom sex. I mean, I'm not a teenager anymore, and I'm closer to this lady's age than the teens, so I'm glad they humanized the moms in such a way that they felt like real human beings outside of their mom roles. And Laurel's relationship with Cleveland was hot, in the wise words of Kesha. No, in the wise words of Katy Perry, not Kesha. Skinny dipping in the dark. And I ship her in Cleveland. I was kind of annoyed at the end that she was rekindling with her ex-husband, Belly's and Steven's dad. We saw him earlier with his new young girlfriend who was 27. I was like, oh my god, that's my age. Ew. I don't know, I just feel like I didn't get to know the dad enough to like care about them getting back together. And I got to know Cleveland so much, and he was such a good mentor and just like a good partner, a good fling. I wanted her and Cleveland to end up together, and I hope they do. Or her and Susannah, obviously, because they're, you know, the OTP of this whole show. Also, these moms are just so lax with their kids. Like, kids are going out partying every day. They're drinking on the premises. Like, must be nice. Must be fucking nice. Chill ass mom that basically talks to you like your roommates and not your parents. That's why I relate more to Never Have I Ever, where there's a strict ass mom that doesn't let Debbie get away with anything. In general, I feel like this show felt like such a fantasy. Like, for example, the parents being so lax and being so chill with kids. The two brothers are both into Belly at once, plus another random guy, just to add some spice to the equation. Like, it all feels like a teenage girl's dream come true and not a depiction of like any kind of realistic scenario. That's why I said this whole series has like a Nicholas Sparks vibe. Like it has an extra level of romance where it's beyond real life relationships. Even though, you know, the character is going through regular coming of age, teenage stuff, it's not necessarily meant to be relatable. It's meant to be a fantasy for girls or whoever watches this to envision their fairy tale relationship. I said this wouldn't be a long video, and now it's a fucking long video again, and I can't fucking help myself, and screw everything. That was the summer I turned pretty. It was fun to unplug with it. I ended up having fun. I was not hooked until the end of episode 3 because there was not many stakes set up in the first 3 episodes, and I was like, why am I watching this? Like, it feels like just teen drama, just teen romance. Once the mom's secret was revealed, the stakes were raised because this is the last summer with the anchor of this whole family. It was kind of a slow burn, but that was the key point that got me hooked, and then I was like, okay, I want to see what happens. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Have you read the books? Have you seen the show? The question of the hour on every fucking teen show is, sorry I'm cursing so much in this video. It's late. Life is tough. But you gotta tell me, are you Team Jelly or Team Conrad? Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed. I put out new videos twice a week, but in the summer it's more like once a week because these videos are really long and hard to edit. But you can follow me at @miscellaneous on Instagram or Twitter to find out about new videos, or just turn on the bell notification here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.